Mi family una kushe una kaba una adu. This is Sarakas TV. It's a regular weekly program Salon for Better. And today, mi family, we go bring una come again back. Um, Chernoh Alpha M Bah. Chernoh, una we don't know am, una we just join we. Chernoh na former spokesperson for the National Democratic Alliance and the 2012 elections, and also Chernoh na chairman for the African Socialist Movement na Sierra Leone, and also na currently the reading PhD na a candidate na the Northwestern University la in Illinois, New Jersey. And this man also na a Pan-Africanist, and also Chernoh go can tell una, go can talk to una today about things the way they go on in the country as an activist way I feel say not to things where they go right, and also now editor in chief for the Africanist Press newspaper. And Mr. Chernoh, welcome to Sarakas TV. Yes. And also, Mr. Chernoh, we can talk today because he say he don't really beaucoup talk them where they come on, but the Emmerson Bockarie album way pull. So as him na editor in chief for the Africanist Press, we na also a Pan-Africanist na human rights activist, and one can touch on this album way Emmerson pull. So, Mr. Chernoh, welcome to Sarakas TV, sir.
Thank you very much. Always good for joining on this show and continue to evaluate the situation as alone.
Okay. Yeah, my family, as soon as we just join Mr. Chernoh get a lot where they compile and forward to the necessary organization that we concern about human rights violations in Sierra Leone. We usai a day, although he reading PhD, busy, again busy schedule, but not happy usai because he thinks the way they see say they happy in Sierra Leone with the things the way they go to way they read and not supposed for being our country. So we bring on today, we can talk about somebody when I be we feel say we na be a revolutionary artist where they sing for Sierra Leone people the way then they happy when na Emmerson Bockarie when he pull an album last 1 or 2 weeks where Mr. Chernoh get concerned but that way one can talk about. So this nine it can explain to way I mean Mr. Chernoh with the first way I feel say we will ask you about this people person will be known as a revolutionary artist when na Emmerson Bockarie. How you look at how you describe the photo jackets we cover an album, and also what you think about the justice of Sierra Leoneans with Emmerson Bockarie albums, sir?
Well, I think say we already know say when we talk about musicians and as alone, Emmerson are a very top artist, and for 15 years now, from 2005 up to now, he don't maintain a consistent voice in terms of articulating the concerns and aspirations of an emerging generation of Sierra Leoneans, the larger sector of the population in terms of change and help articulate and grievances. So the role where Emmerson don't play over the last 15 years in the national conversation on, regarding change in alone, not in way consistent with waiting other artists that we don't decide for use their art, use culture as an instrument for change. When you look around Africa, you think about artists them like Fela Kuti, you look at Ivory Coast, you get Tikenja Fakoly, you get, a number of these people across the world. We all know about the famous Bob Marley and all that. So people always look forward to Emmerson in music because now a music will reflect the everyday life of people and also people them aspiration for change. A place like Sierra Leone, politicians and politics don't disappoint a lot of people. And usai most people also feel say artists them like Emmerson, they're in a better position for speak truth to power and help expose some of the failures of governments and political leaders and for address the everyday issues we get for deal with economic development, the living conditions of the people, issues around corruption, management of public resources, and all of that. So that now the consistent line where Emmerson don't play, and also Emmerson in intervention, over the years from 2007 up to the last election, now one way become essential or important in defining the outcome of elections. In 2007, we see Tufu Tarata and Bobo Bele, and also the last 10 years of Ernest Bai Koroma, and in consistent resistance to that kind of politics, especially at a time when everybody almost don't depend on politics and power and the relationship with governments for determine their own everyday life. So for get a consistent line of engagement with centered around change and the desire of us, for fulfill or serve that role as a spokesperson of the people. Now one way, carry a heavy burden, and that make you see say every time when an artist like Emmerson release a song or an album, it definitely get for generate different kind of conversation, and that conversation get for be centered around would I support the album, and would I support the message, the content of the album, or the content of the kind of music or song, the content of the songs, and how then relates to the question of power and change, and holding leaders accountable to electoral promises and the idea that then the leaders will deliver the common good to the people. So for every moment you get forget a sector of the population we go opposed to the songs, you get forget a sector of the population we go hail the music, we go appreciate the music depending on which side they stand on the political equation, whether they support parties in power or support parties that are in opposition. So the question then is within how this current album relates to Emmerson's consistent position within that role we've been on the plane as alone as a spokesperson of the people, and within at this recent, complain, because we don't see now in this with this song a lot of people complain about what they expect for done within this album, within the message for don't capture, while we get issues around mob justice, issues around land grabbing, issues around the failure of the Minister of Finance for address, the challenges with the economy and all that. So you get the underlying questions around what is absent in terms of recent developments, questions around recent incidents of political violence, bloated salaries of civil servants, and the frequent traveling of the president and the frivolous expenditure we get for do with that kind of situation, and the violence in the parliament, increasing police brutality, and all these things that people let me feel safe for inside the music. But so if we want to discuss this kind of forget the conversation, national conversation in respect of this kind of album or music, we got to ask yourself exactly why people feel, why the one that we think say the music not representative of what they expect from Emmerson, for things say them for rely on one cultural performer, one artist for serve as the spokesperson of everybody. Why we at what point we don't come in the country where everybody get for look for one individual or hope say now only one person for able to capture the totality of all these grievances or existing problems in the country in just one song or one musical album. And waiting this also tell we in terms of people and aspiration for change in the country. And waiting at the failure, how we go use this also for examine the failure of other groups within the country for fulfill their own role. We talk about what are the role of intellectuals. We say we get academics in the country we don't fail for stand up, and speak truth to power and help for expose what's in the happen. We say the media day, we don't become unable for hold leaders accountable. Where the general civil society movement, where are they? And why they don't surrender their role as spokespeople, as people that we talk in defense of human rights, in defense of social justice and all these issues that the people in for now wait for one cultural performer, one artist for capture all the grievances of I think so this say a lot about Usai we country today in terms of how did we get here, how we arrive at this point where everybody don't remain silent to the point that one artist alone therefore be the centerpiece or the only person where they hope say for able to talk everything we don't go wrong that the country within the last 2 to 3 years. So what are the role of the opposition parties? What are the role of trade unions? What are the role of, for example, the bar association? So, what are the role of SLAG? And all these separate, civil society organizations, the media, even intellectuals. So we get these academics that the country now, we're not able stand up and talk that ordinary people are going for look for alternative voices. So who are the thinking representatives of our society? And why have they failed to articulate these grievances and existing conditions of the country? And within an allegiance to power, within an allegiance to the status quo. And then once we address them, one, then they will be able now examine whether it's fair for criticize Emmerson on the basis that capture, for example, the Pademba Road incident, able talk about the range, this chain of political violence that don't happen from the inauguration of parliament to the by-elections to incidents na Chernoh, incidents na McKinney and all these other corruption, big scandal corruption issues. How much money the president done. Madabio, for example, in recent times is obviously the leading, the most frequent travel president which Sierra Leone produced in this post-war period from 2002 to now, in amount of trips that we don't make in just within 2 years in power. The only time we not travel now, the world becomes shut down by Corona. So how much money you don't spend in all these years? So why organizations within the country, civil society movements, and even intellectuals, lecturers, academics at the universities now, instead of speaking out, speaking truth to power, don't become people who look for jobs. Don't become left the academy, they look for jobs. So this disappointment where people they express in the country in terms of why Emmerson not talk about all this and go beyond just Emmerson as an individual or in music, and whether Emmerson actually lenient with the SLPP in power and was harsh with the APC in power. I think if we take the conversation on that level, we will fail for examine the country exactly and try to see how almost the people we're supposed to serve as thinking representatives of the country don't fail for stand up in this time. And waiting don't cause that now, because everybody is now dependent upon their relationship with government, their relationship with the party in power for their own survival. You're not gonna forget jobs if they not get a relationship with government. For example, you see university lecturers now, they try for left the classroom, for can become ministers, for can become appointees of government in the public service, because that is the only place where they are guaranteed salaries. So we get a situation where the nutritionist of the president, what people call the cook of the president, gets almost 20 times the salary of a secondary school teacher. Almost the annual salary of a nurse is equivalent to the 1 month salary of the president in nutritionist. So you find out, say, the professor, a senior lecturer in the University of Sierra Leone, FBC, they earn less than the president in nutrition, is the president in young cook. So these are the kind of situation we don't make now. Everybody, one for the part of government, everybody, one for join government, one for join politics, one for join the parties in power. So they cannot speak truth to power. They cannot, they have betrayed the people. They have surrendered all their integrity, then your own voice to government, because then if if somebody no go able then at the university, which I forget freedom for teach and understand, say, as a professor within a university, you are guaranteed a tenure, lifetime employment, and that being a professor, that will allow you forget the independence or carry out your activities without interference, without anything, and you will able to use that as a position for also talk about and examine the country and suggest to leaders within the office. So the Academic Staff Association, this is now an indictment on the Academic Staff Association, on all these professional institutions, the lawyers, the Bar Association, the even the Australian Association of Journalists, the wider civil society movement. Then before we come to political parties and political leaders, we just wait for elections, for bargain, for see which party them for join, for make sure say when negotiate cabinet positions and all these things. So this is why people are complaining. This is why people then feel dissatisfied with those who are dissatisfied with Emerson's song are dissatisfied because they are looking for thinking representatives of their society. People wait for stand up and articulate their grievances because they not get the platform. So they are hoping that
pretty much like a void.
Oh yeah, of course, a void. You see, when this void exists, when a society arrives at a point, we say the professional class, for example, we say lawyers, doctors, medical doctors, we say lecturers, as I already say, and
Civil
journalists, society, largely speaking, then don't surrender, then don't become appendages of the state. We say, you see, say journalists go to work now, not to for make it try for whole government accountable, but make government make it in at the good books of government so they can be appointed press attachés or press officers within ministries, because then that is they are guaranteed a good salary. Or somebody will abandon a job as a university professor for making become a minister in government, because that is where they can earn salaries and steal from public money. So that not the crisis where the country don't get. So that is when the society now, the general ordinary people, genuinely looking for people away for whole government accountable and hold and speak truth to power, they always look forward to anybody with and think say capable for do that role day for them, for express all their grievances. So this is where the disappointment about what has not been reflected in Emerson's song and why people feel say this particular music, Coconut Head, nor capture, nor day to the level where Bobo Bele to Foot Arata could do, Munku Boss matches and all these things, it not resonate with them, because they feel say so much has gone wrong in these 2 years. And part of what don't go wrong in the country, that the surrender where civil society, the larger sector of the media, the academic staff, the professor, the lecturers, people are waiting at the academies, as if not able now get the independence and understand say, their role in a society, not just to teach people, but to also examine and be part of the conversation, national conversation around progress, around development, around good governance and the protection of civil liberties. These are all.
Yeah, Mr. Chernoh, me people don't know just they join with this Nasara Cast TV, which regular program Salon for Better. We they talk to Mr. Chernoh Alpha M Bah, we are the editor-in-chief of the Africanist Press, and also now the former spokesperson for the National Democratic Alliance in the 2012 elections. It just they talk about things the way they happen at the country, and especially regarding to the Emmerson Bockarie in album where it just bring come up where certain things then they where it puts the way at least not go down well with them. We not go down well with certain people. But before I go further, Mr. Amjad will come on to you, Mr. Chernoh, and then later on I will ask you a question where I will ask Mr. Alban. Mr. Amjad, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chernoh, you think they really expect too much from Emmerson?
Well, if fear for expect for making the people expect a lot from anybody, we get a larger platform. That's not the role of the artist. We don't put himself forward, not just as an entertainer, but as a voice for change, as a thinking representative of the community, as somebody who articulates the grievances of the people, for it carry a huge burden on his shoulders. The question of representing this larger sector of a youthful population. For they know say his voice matters a lot. In voice don't help for decide the decide to a large extent the outcome of elections, the outcome of political contest, and all that this individual they expect them for speak for everybody. But as I say, realizing that for me, I think say we put so much pressure on we could be unfair again if we decide say okay, that is what he can do. Make we take them as and say, well, what he own bit. So what in our role as citizens? What in our role as people, as leaders of political parties? What are the role of parliamentarians, for example? What are the role of teachers, lecturers, the people in the academy? Why have they been silent in the face of this ongoing corruption, ongoing mismanagement of public finance, ongoing arrest and detention of opponents, ongoing crackdown on democratic space? What are the role of academics? What are the role of journalists? What are the role of lawyers, the bar association?
So in this
the
case, what do you think is the role of Emerson as an
well,
artist, as a citizen?
well, already as I say, every cultural performer now first and foremost an entertainer. That is what we have to take into consideration. A cultural performer is an entertainer. The cultural performer goes beyond that role of just entertaining by being part of, because if you don't born a society and a country who say for 50 to 60 years now corruption and mismanagement and bad governance has become the order of the day, it is obvious that those conditions alone go radicalize you, enough for radical and begin to think about um, not for settle for those basic things what other people think they're for settle for. So if you don't take that step ahead and say, I'm not going to just produce music for the dancehall, but also music where for challenge the status quo, music where for educate people around what is their responsibility and role and hold governments accountable, then you got to live up to that role there. And which is a huge task in itself in a society that is so corrupt, that is bankrupt, and where progressives and revolutionaries get few allies. You don't
Mr.
understand.
China, you don't think say Emmerson they try for downplay Sierra Leoneans there with this album we pull?
Well, we don't hear a lot of complaint around that aspect because people they compare the the kind of expressions where then see the adjectives and imagery we see in Bobo Bele and yesterday better past today and all these things compared to this, they felt is a disappointment. But I'm saying that if we only feel this as a disappointment because everybody in the country don't become silent over the ongoing oppression where they happen at the country, but we say you get an active civil society movement, an active media, okay, and we say you get active voices where the whole government accountable. The failure of one individual where don't they perform that role there as part of this general movement for change,
Yeah,
not for
create
me.
that much
Yeah,
impact.
not for me create any impact, but we got to talk about this disappointment of a sector of the population simply because the people that wait for serve as wait for play that role as civil society activists, as people who talk in defense of people's and right, from political parties now to the larger sector of the media to even the academy. The people within the academy itself, say, take for example, lecturers in Frobe College, student union, movements in the past used to be very active in talking against economic mismanagement and all of this. But that tradition, they don't just disappear because now everybody's looking forward to jobs. And the state government don't become the only defining employer, the only opportunity for good employment and good salary get for be political appointment. And that is
So
wrong. That
everybody
is
there on survival mode, pretty much.
survival mode. So this passion for survival, now you see. So if possible, say, how about we talk about how for takeaway in the last conversation, you remember we talked about exposing, finding ways to expose some of these things also now for expose organizations and individuals where they pretend saying they represent the masses when they're actually not representing the people and they just seek their own career. And
That's a very good I actually want to ask a question will relate to that. When you take Emerson in lyrics from the past and compare to now, you think say all along he's been a spokesman for the SLPP party?
Well, I would be very unfair for make say that, because for make we say that we can forget concrete evidence for link somebody with a party, because the
I mean,
tradition has.
based on his songs only, like when you listen to his song in the past
Well, I
and
don't
you
go say
listen
that.
to that of the present.
No, I don't go say that. I would just, I think we compare an artistic work. We put this one thing. It's just like people and like Mr. Sebwe, they write books. Or I write two books. In my last two books, most of them critical of Ernest by Kuruma for the most part, and the APC. By then, they in a power. So if I come, they just finish a new book now, assessing the current situation at Salon. So people will read these works of art, whether it's music or any cultural production, based on their own expectation. I think, say right now, people they look for leadership in the country. The failure of the political class, the ongoing, we don't, these 3 years, going to 3 years of Mother Bill, don't intensify the suffering of the people.
So
Um,
make me use the books as example. You initially write a book with critical of the APC, right?
yes.
And if the new book also critical of the APC instead of the APC, is it reasonable to assume that you're actually an advocate all along for?
Yeah, you go risk that situation for me people judge you on those terms, because you
So
know
in the same vein, obviously, Emerson also did the same thing. Like,
well, we got to give credit to the fact that it talk about mob justice. It single out the first lady around the sanctioning of mob justice. It talk about the failure of the finance ministry for address the economic challenges as they promised. Okay. It talk about ongoing land grabbing within the city of Freetown. Okay. These three, if we take these three instances alone, we don't assess it. That's a critique of the current government. Yes, as an individual, we hope for see more. Issues that are left out are more than the issues we reflected in the lyrics. Okay, like we talk about the Pademba Road incident, which is a major human right violation. Okay, we talk about the issues of salaries, where we don't become a conversation as alone, where the nutritionist and these political appointees are being paid huge salaries, or the exorbitant amount of public resources wasted on international travel by the president, his entourage, and the several ministers, and how they use that as basis for per diem. Okay, examine the ongoing distribution of land to SLPP cabinet ministers, SLPP party loyalists, now where they build all over the western area, beginning from number 2 river right up to Kent and Bure and all this Hamilton area. Highlight the chain of
Mr.
electoral violence.
Chernoh, Mr.
And all.
Chernoh, waiting Abiwan asks again.
So these
Um,
are
Mr.
these,
Chernoh, yeah,
the
I said,
absence of them in the lyrics now also make we conclude say the man is basically an SLPP party member, because for making that kind of accusation, it goes beyond just the music. But the question is, make for me go talk say maybe that is his interest, and those are the things he want to talk about at this time. So the question is, why we expect him for talk about all sort of issues? Is it because in the past he has articulated all of the issues where been go wrong, and if you never articulate the issues, and they maybe people will judge them differently. But then how do we address that vacuum? How we go address the vacuum who people that don't expect say they need people for whole governments holistically accountable? Me to say the result of this subtraction are the fact that people are no longer speaking truth to power. Or if we take Emerson say, articulate fully the concerns of the people, then what has gone wrong in these 3 years? How situation don't become heightened? Wouldn't the failure of artists that now, cultural performers, academics, lawyers, journalists, general civil society, and all these individuals. What is their relationship to the state, and what are the benefits we then get from that?
Okay, Mr. Chernoh, may people don't know just the join with this Nasara Cast TV with regular program Saloon for Better. We get Chernoh Alpha M Bah, we na editor in chief for the Africanist Press. They talk today about the album we Emmerson release. So it just they try for church small side and let people understand. Although a lot of people they don't come, they don't talk. But Mr. Mr. Chernoh, one thing we see something where they go around now the social media and we confirm to correspondent and Afriton. We see a land where now they declare say Emmerson gets certain portion of land. Why now after just he pulling album and this album where he pull, we know say na album we at least then cook several times because as a revolutionary artist will be known as Sierra Leone, like we call them Bobo Bele, Munku Boss Pamachis, and Escoma we call her Adebayo, a pull music them all kinds way talk say good do. But this now almost 3 years ago never pull music unless where we understand say Fatima, the first lady, began 20 keke for Lucky Mot we will pull music. Yes. Where it began keke them where he say if he pull music it go get and keke them back, that na one. Then this album we pull, then say before this album finally come out as we get to correspondent in a tongue. This album reached the office of the president first, they listen them, then tell us say no pull this. And at 3 times it do one such musical then they tell us say you get for pull this before you finally pull up because Emmerson did know say they survive through the Sierra Leonean people and then confining them, then believing them, and that since all entire they go on them they listing for music you know pull them, people don't lose confidence on them. Okay, right now. After I pull this music now we see a land where they don't apportion to Emmerson, whether not buy them, like give and giam. We want to know. So what do you think? Because it's a lot of people and they say that land they not to buy a buy them compensate them before because of this music we pull and what to make the people them very disgruntled in the country right now. What do they expect na Emmerson album? Like what if they eat an escoma when are the former president of Sierra Leone? You know eat mother building so you know it's the killing them we happy na Tonko Liba that bobo them with Josephine Jackson Chocho you know area and they that other bobo we la Lawrence Dimafa na Indomot you know area and they the killing then alone Sal Tombo McKinney everything you know area they know area and they so now make the people know able believe in the album and say not to a true revolutionary singer anymore. What do you get for say about that, Mr. Chernoh?
Well, in the first place, the accusations or the rumors where they fly around, you know, in a society like ours, all kinds of rumors will go around. As a journalist, and you know, for some time now, I try not for make rumor part of my conversation. That now one because some of you know, I like for talk about issues when I have the evidence, concrete evidence, you know, in front of me. Then I can come forward and say them as but these are issues that have to be looked into, whether through what you talk about the relationship between the alleged relationship with people in power and also the alleged benefit that relationship don't bring. But when we take this question of this survey plan, where they float on social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, we carry Emmerson in name and supposedly a land given to, you know, him, allegedly given to him in February. So basically, within the document, they try for alleged that state land has been given to Emmerson by the current administration. So if the document are correct document, that means, you know, we got to ask the question whether it's wrong for a citizen to get land, state access to state land. That the laws then allow everybody the right for apply for state land and get allocated land, especially land, mostly two-town lot. I understand cabinet policy there around that. But then the question is, not every citizen can get access to that right there. You got to be highly placed, know somebody, or possibly a little bit influential, or know how for move around for able to get that. So the question is, if the document is genuine, why would somebody want to bring it up at this crucial time? And who would are the potential people that would likely bring that? In the song, Emmerson talk about the persistent and ongoing land grabbing by the current Minister of Lands. And so if that document they come, now make we assume say that people within the lands, current lands ministry, or the people within at the current government and then produce that document if the document is genuine, if a true document, then you will understand say this that then will do and for also affect the credibility of the artist in the sense that you could say, oh, you are accusing us of grabbing and distributing land to be safe. Um, we also don't give you land, you know, that unexpected response from government.
So
But
you actually benefit from the system if that's the
no,
case.
we can find out if actually the survey document are a correct survey document because you know this in these days anybody can produce that kind of can draw up that kind of survey plan. There is no conveyance, for example, no conveyance. I just a map, a document drawn out with people's names as surveyor and all that. So survey document again, not sufficient to make you allege somebody get a property to land. Therefore, the land has to be conveyed, has to be given to the individual, whether now on rent or freehold. But in this case, that document alone not sufficient for we make the kind of accusations we would make. Now we can discuss. Yes, we write for discuss whether the album, the content of the lyrics, comparatively with previous albums, this one is hard enough. Most people don't talk say hard enough because they expect more from the album. That is right to expect. But again, anybody, whether an author of a book, like a cultural performer, they choose, with choices then different. So now whether for me we assign motive to that choices, then again, go for take we for look more deeper than the way. But yes, a right for say I'm disappointed in this artist, not how I expect for make it was that until we fans can say of a cultural performer, an artist, a footballer. Okay. You can get a footballer way to go play. So they play well in the game. So they no, but I don't expect this footballer not play well.
Okay, Mr. Chernoh, I know we don't say Mr. Chernoh, we don't say you're a senior man from journalism business, and we will come to Emmerson Bockarie back, and we'll get all a couple of things that we want to like church for we small because you get a lot of followers, you get people that we respect you, we believe in what you they talk, to like man. And what do you see with that kind of politics where can the Yumkela they play in the country right now? Because people and they talk about that don't see hypocrisy and nakedness. And you as a senior man when I investigate, and that investigation journalism you do way at least you able to check somebody, turn her over in and out and know how you see can the Yumkela how they play in the salon politics right now.
Well, that's a very large and big question. The NGC, people that remember my position in the last election, I write, I think, 4 articles leading up to the elections of 2018 where evaluate and assess the NGC, then campaign around being a progressive, and also that then different from APC and SLPP. And I say categorically, I pose the question, make them sure we wouldn't differentiate the NGC and the APC, the NGC from the APC or SLPP, and I not be see the differences. So that will be a debate where I've been hold, and I dismiss the fact that the NGC get anything for offer the people of Sierra Leone than we could see in APC and SLPP. And part of the reason is because for me, the formation of a political party not get for be one way come from reaction, from being as a reactionary move from the fact that you are denied leadership from a party, you decide to, okay, now go break away and form a party. I don't believe in breakaway factions. I don't believe in political parties, being the offshoot of existing parties, of the two existing parties. I don't believe that kind of politics. And I always frown at any politician or political group where come out as a consequence of acrimony and animosity within existing parties. So that is why I have never supported breakaway groups, and that make I not able see the NGC as different from the APC and SLPP back during the elections. And after the elections again, this idea, of course, you go give Kanda Yumkela, and a very good Sierra Leonean, a very successful Sierra Leonean. You could say, if we count good citizens, where we could say them make headlines outside of the borders of Sierra Leone, we could count them. But then this idea that the NGC, this concept of constructive opposition, I don't even understand them because I have been searching, in political theory, political science. I don't ever see the idea that I would be in the middle of the road, I'm here or there. My own understanding that you are either with the masses, with the people, or you are not with them. So that a conversation where I think say, but this is the thing. Every politician or every political leader in the political environment, getting your own tactics and in strategy in terms of how we expect or hope for become the ultimate leader of a country. Because when you form a political party or you be head of a political party, what you're aspiring for is to become the ultimate leader of the country. So now there's this game that, already we might have your kind of power. The SLPP don't wage a general war against the opposition, largely speaking, but then single out the APC as the target, the primary target for now. And that primary target, the first thing was to accuse the APC, the totality of the APC party as being corrupt, inept, and this comes from the politics of the APC in the last 10 years. So Madabio go right down the country, call everybody a nyampi, label and condemn and call the racketeers, criminal enterprise. So by so doing, already you don't, and not only that, the COI don't recommend, say, them for ban about 80 people or so for 3 years or 5 years from holding public office. So which is to see that the SLPP strategy was not just to criminalize the APC or opposition generally speaking, but to make sure, say, they identify will-be contenders and almost blacklist them so they cannot. So what is the advantage for the NGC? Now, that will open the entire northern region up for grab. If, for example, there's no sufficient or sophisticated leader emerging from the APC is able to produce any serious contender, then it leaves the NGC with the opportunity for able galvanize from that Cambia axis now, maybe assume the political vacuum that will supposedly exist in this. Again, like when they play draft chairs, you hope, say, okay, when they knock me opponent, then we go able get a headway. Possibly that will be an NGC calculation that will make sense in the current situation. But for rogue politicians in power, the kind of military.
Mr. Chernoh,
Yeah.
get a call away. They call for ask a question. We don't know what you want to ask. Hold on a minute. Let's see what you. Yes, caller. What's your name and who's you call from? Pastor Emmanuel Kuyate. Yes, what you want to say? Hello? Yeah, Pastor Emmanuel Kuyate, what's your question where you get, sir? Hello?
I think they don't hang up.
Okay, Mr. Chernoh, what thing would they try for saying now? So, what do you think about the current administration where they go on when people in the talk? What if you say now the things the way then they do we not right? Because a lot of people in the come on now the social media, even at the country, they cry. Waiting at the certain things the way if you say they go on when they go right, when if you say you for try for advise this administration and see what if you say them for do right for the Sierra Leone people.
I think we don't talk about most of this in the previous 2 weeks. Much of anger for do with the closure of the democratic space and the fact that this ongoing state violence against opponents to the point that, and this now make the conversation around Emmerson in current album very important in the sense that how about people exercising self-censorship? The idea that the situation at London becomes so violent that people where they sing or talk or write, apart from being supporters or being co-opted by government, go also decide, say, you know what, make I not can put myself uh, at risk by saying things, so I decide to remain silent, then capitulate. Fear of being arrested, fear of being attacked by thugs at night. We don't get reports of people saying, armed robbery, we are shooted with violence. We mentioned the case of Hassan Breeze, for example. Hassan Breeze, the MP who have been so vocal in the parliament, talk about the timber deal, talk about, dismissed workers. It's just in absolute no more. You get an unlicensed vehicle come hit him and nearly kill him. Up to now, he suffered those injuries, and police have not been able to get into the investigation and find out who didn't do this. So you see this thing about people closer to the president. They talk about mob justice. They talk about authorize the use of violence against people. They say them for discard the rule of law. So these increased levels of lawlessness orchestrated by the state, a situation which government, the executive branch, don't order police, invade parliament, remove MPs, and impose illegally a speaker on other members of parliament. So this is general chaos. So this kind of situation can also force people into silence and decide to exercise self-censorship. You say the charges against Sylvia Blyden, for example, for posting on Facebook about the traveling, some of the charges get to do with the statement around the travel, frequent traveling of the president. And nobody no go deny say Madabi don't travel past any other president who don't get in recent times in Salone. What has come out of that? How much money has he spent? Nobody know. How much per diems have they collected as a consequence? How they don't use international travel as a means for steal public money? Nobody's talking about that, to the point that he even get the God for put forward a bill, the parliament, for say make you know hold them accountable for impressed. These kinds of
But
situations.
Mr. Chernoh, we want to say again, what do you think about Madabio be the guy for join the delegation ahead for ECOWAS, the state delegation for moderate the Mali peace talks where they refuse ECOWAS refuse You get any idea about that?
Yes, I don't read reports around some of that. I'm not looking to them deeply, but all I know is that this government not get the kind of international support, regardless of this dance winning the dance around the fact that they don't get Corona money from IMF and World Bank. They celebrate that, but actually, what significant international support this BO government don't get? We never see anything. Nobody has taken this government very seriously. Even the inauguration, Gambia, when a Gambia, the president just sent his wife. So apart from George Weah, who else was there at the inauguration in May 2018, when this government came to power? So that is where you begin to find out exactly whether this government has international friends, good international relations. No. He has traveled all over the world. How many similar kinds of visits he don't get? No, he has gone to Abidjan, he has gone to the Middle East, he has gone to Rwanda. None of these people not pay him visit. He has surprisingly gone to Kenya on a safari visit. Nobody visit gone. So apart from Idris Elba and Akon that promised to give that to do solar electricity investment as alone, and also a Sierra Leonean a footballer that supposedly associated with Chelsea. So we don't ever see any significant contribution to the BO regime in terms of international support. So I would not be surprised if some of these West African leaders or African leaders now pay we serious, not give serious significant role. The only significant when they talk about now the fact that Sierra Leone is heading the a group of 10 that is lobbying the UN Security Council for the giving of Africa one seat at Security Council, but that is not the result of Madabio. That was even one that was already there before he came. A role we did not exist before he occupied the presidency.
Okay, Mr. Chernoh, I want to ask some follow-up question. When you take how a lot of people we for stand-up kind of don't become silent. Civil society, politicians, and now, people in the PCA, Emmerson also don't withdraw a little bit. So do you think Madabio is actually succeeding in silencing the majority?
Well, that na the, government that can use two ways for silent dissent. One way na for co-opt, for incorporate people where they expect saying dissident voices into the administration by bribes, giving them positions, government positions, and also through the use of violence. Like I say already, you see the government come out between March to May, we see the heightened nature of the violence side to the extent that the president even called opposition or anybody critical of government as terrorist. So you see, so that are the extreme levels of violence. So you were not able because for 3 years now, with all these levels of violence from Hamilton to Tombo to Tonkolimba to Mile 91, McKinney, we never see significant breakaway. We never get a situation where any major politician from any of the opposition parties don't decide for breakaway and join the ruling party. That tells you that the opposition is largely comfortable with their own strategy. They believe, say, they would defeat this government, and believe, say, then okay, then what's up? So the government don't become stressed. And in that desperate effort, now don't decide for criminalize everybody. They decide for accuse everybody of being corrupt. And to some extent, even we ordinary people, we're not associated to parties, as you criticize the government, so they support and go, oh, you know, APC, and I'll be the beneficiary been there throughout the way APC been there. So those kinds of things about shutting down everybody, if you then don't go to the point of even defining what good citizenship is. Somebody even come up to me and say, when we begin publish this corruption scandal at the finance ministry, somebody say, oh, you are not a patriotic citizen. So they don't reduce patriotism for even mean that you get for support the government. If you don't support Madabio and the government, you are not a good citizen. And so this blackmail, this effort for blackmail and slander people and accuse them of all kinds of things, you see, they're part of the process of quietening the process. So this all don't contribute to the kind of silence. But again, there's a willingness on the part of other organizations, because when you take a lawyer, for example, you don't need government for make you survive. So that professional class, the failure of the professional class for serve as thinking representatives of the people, for serve as genuine voices, now don't allow subalterns, ordinary people now, for assume that role. So that make you see pedestrians don't become the spokespeople, because academics, intellectuals, journalists, civil society activists who we know in the past don't already surrender, not because some of them they fear the ongoing aggression, but most of them are now beneficiaries of the corruption where they happen. They are now part of.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chernoh. The writing it so, because I see one of you follow and they say, best journalist way they always they look up to, because at least you they say waiting at the writing. And waiting with they see presently with this current government way they talk, so you understand. These people we don't they talk na so na sharecast. Always me they talk and say these people are bunch of international criminals, you understand. And all the security the way President Bio they pass with, so now for threatening people, because not if man no use out to work, not get knowledge out for work. All waiting and do now for thief, because look the kind of money we Pakabasi don na 98.1 way they hand over again Escoma a cry say where a kind say this guy away them put so as president Madabio. It if all thing go Ghana and ma ama we come with neo-colonialists the way na Britain are not like will. Because how them be left with them Malta lane, Eastern lane, Schengen lane, this lane. Now that way they want less Sierra Leone. They even Sierra Leone as the way they England right now. Then they enjoy the benefits where England they give them. If you say not like England like them, where every week then they go take check, then go enjoy. No, not to like England. England colonize America. England craze can't tell America right now for tell what America they do. No, you're not craze. Because America, Sierra Leone and Escoma denying all the kind conditionality the way IMF they bring come, because when IMF bring come conditionality, can you believe? Then they send country representative. That money they back they give they can't take the pay the people who them bring come by pound sterling. Samoa Kamara know that, and Escoma know that, then say, no, we don't want her. We go China. And I they tell you for free, I they work on sideway, I they meet up on sideway, they go take lunch with people who come on African country, them. Then they tell you, then Kenya them, Tanzania them, they all in country, then now that they develop them in China. So now this Britain don't see, they lend them, they go them way in the past government do. Britain not ever do that road and they for we. Who's build the way you go point out saying that Britain and do that beside the slaves that we can build for we law courts? Nothing. So if people like Britain they come, they can't say because the neighbor supply weapon now for let the overthrown government, they can't tell we say we need regime change. People will not believe me, I not believe in Britain. Now for nothing. So now bad people them. So what you they say is, you understand, like when they talk so, you understand waiting na the credibility where you feel say for explain to salon people them where the international world gets and matter be because you know more versatile, you know what waiting up. If you say the international world get credibility on matter be Mr. Chernoh, yeah, I want like church and this small for you before we round up.
Well, I think say the question in international community or whatever, we the Sierra Leone people get a lot for do in terms of for how we get for decide, you know, what do we want for the country in the first place. Which is why these kinds of conversations will we get so a part of the process for educate with people and also contribute to that national conversation where we need around what thing they go wrong and also what thing we need for do for stop these ongoing wrong things the way they happen and how people then will take responsibility for change some of these things. I think that now within this whole argument and anger around why Emmerson not talk about this, why you not talk about this, why he left this as compared to what he been doing in the past. Now because people don't fed up, you know, with the hardship. People are disappointed because this regime, this government of Madabio, they've been promised a new direction. They've been promised for change things. They identify problems. And for people now going to 3 years, they have not seen anything significantly beneficial in what has happened since the elections of 2018. In fact, what we don't see now, increased violence, political violence, increased situation which are people are not even afraid for talk, and other people away in the talk now don't join government because they're the only place where they will get employment. So we got to arrive at a point where say we ensure that people go able to live in a country without necessarily depending on government. And this got to do with questions of salaries. How we could do this government been promised, for example, for harmonized salaries. They not do them. Then don't come, instead they don't bloat the wage bill. They've been promised for cut down the wage bill, cut down public expenditure. This not happen. So people need for highlighting, need for hold governments on their promises and need for also examine whether those promises that we have made during the campaigns have been fulfilled, and if they not fulfill them, how for ensure that they fulfill for do them, how for educate the people, and so that in next election we will vote and vote these kinds of leaders out, and also how for protect them vote. I think once we arrive at that point, we say other groups of nations say this government where they commit atrocities, where they violate human rights, not respect the rule of law, not the self. So they're not able. There's no way they can protect a regime that is, you know, violating its own law. But even if England or America or any other country want change in a saloon, if the people of Sierra Leone not determined and take up the challenge for changing their own situation, it's not going to happen. So that power, and we're not going to wait for one artist or one individual for just doing it. It's going to be a collective process. Make we come out and begin speak truth to power and begin hold, demand with rights, and then be responsible as citizens. We get the right for stand up and speak truth to power and hold governments accountable. If they're not doing, we ensure, say, come in the next election, we vote against them, and also protect we vote and make sure the vote is counted towards the right direction. That is what I think is essential in this kind of conversation. But international organizations, international countries also get their own agenda. in their dealings with countries. Some of them get for do with their economic interest, their foreign policy relationships, their strategic security interests, and all that. Yeah. But while then go try to impose a leadership on people, people can subvert that will they by the popular determination of a country and its citizens for changing that.
Africanist Press when Mr. Chernoh Alpha M Bah. Mr. Chernoh, what do you think about the detention when they delay? Although yes, we talk about Emmerson Bockarie album where he pull, where you don't touch but cutting but that but 20 salon people and them they're waiting at the ideology about salon people waiting and think about that. We did just try for what if you say Mr. Paulo Conte and began say na coup d'etat one form for go over to a president and also one bobo just in Jackson be Churchill. I think say in one case still in a court no all the star mate. Then that bobo way Ali Foster we like Lawrence Lima go fire na in the month. They don't pull and they don't bring and they don't can cut part by body, they don't go fixing foot for laying foot not rotting. All anything and the way na human rights violation. Paulo Conte the way liable to bail where they don't miss say na it's easy now don't go to different the possession of arms with them for. So what you want to say about that the law round up keep Mr. Chernoh Alpha since you na a human rights activist you know also na editor in chief for the Africanist Press and you know what more about the law than they if you say that the right thing and they do to you people and so Mr. Chernoh.
Everybody knows say human rights violations wrong, and we also know say these 3 years now political violence and the detention of people where government disagree with don't become almost the order of the day to the point that now even myself I get people that within SLPP circles who can call me say no kaya or if you kaya then go arrest you, then go detain you and all those kinds of things. So we get for ensure that those kinds of situations where citizens cannot speak out, where people go feel safe for them, articulate them voices, them therefore be liable for arrest and detention and prolonged detention without trial, without or unfair trial and detention. That things are way wrong. Like I say, last week we announced that the Africanist Press, they're in the process for document these violations that don't take place in the last 3 years and then write an official letter in partnership with other human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch and other groups them for submit and to the international partners of Sierra Leone for warn them or alert them on some of these human rights violations for highlight the violent nature of the political situation as alone. And I'm so encouraged that when we put out the call, we don't get even individuals volunteering and coming forward and putting forward information. So I will go ahead again and say, anybody with information of any violation, whether it has happened to you or happened to somebody that you know, right we go follow up. The email now info@africanistpress.com and we will take them up. Hopefully in the next 1 week or 2, we go don't complete this documentary process and then we go also announce to the public when we send this letter. So the email address again is info@africanistpress.com. And last week when we make the announcement, we appreciate the people who come forward and provide information. We also will keep resources there anonymous, and so no fear. We send we email say we protect resources. So feel free for report these violations, any information you get regarding violations from the prison incident to the Tumbo incident to anybody that's been arrested and detained. We collect this data comprehensively. As at last count, we believe say now we get a total of at least 200 people in police cells right across the country who were arrested from Hamilton to Tonkolimba to all these places to Lunsar, Kono, who have not been tried, have not been given right and access to legal representation. And this is very wrong, very unfair, and will continue for call on the authorities concerned for looking to this situation and release these individuals. These ongoing violations are completely wrong. You cannot run government by this military violence. This militia approach to power is not good for development. It's not good for human progress. It's not even good for the people in power. So the earlier they realize that, the better they change. But we are going ahead and making this a national as both as an international conversation, and that now with determination for.
inside and check you out with something, and then I will come down back to you. Then they will round up the program. Mr. Amjad, yes, go ahead.
So pretty much the roundup. This is not a question from a viewer. I don't know whether not a question. It is, Mr. Bah, how true is it about the social media document that is going on around about the ICC? I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I know, aware of that, but I'm aware of processes now by other Sierra Leoneans and friends of Sierra Leone for highlight the ongoing violation of Saloon that I pretty much know. And I know again that corporations, investment companies where their rights then don't become violated and Saloon don't also, they take cases against the Sierra Leone government to various international organizations. I don't even see effort by a group of companies, mining companies, where they try for right, IMF, World Bank, and who halt and support Sierra Leone. So I wouldn't be surprised if other people don't approach the ICC in this regard. Like I say, we also they try for put together a document of violations that don't take place over the last 2 to 3 years now for bring that to the attention of other international organizations, including the UN Security Council, and lobby with friends within the UN circles again for put pressure for make these organizations demand an investigation into the situation of Saloon, especially the massacre of prisoners at Pademba Road prisons.
Me family, una we just dey check this na Cast TV with the program Salon for Better. Una just the listings from Chernoh Alpha M Bah, we na the editor-in-chief for the Africanist Press, and also na the former spokesperson for the National Democratic Alliance in the 2012 elections. And he just don't give una updates about wetin dey come up na Sierra Leone, and also na human rights activists and Pan-Africanists. We go bring am for una every week. We go bring am come una for let at least they can talk to una. And also na person he just study na Illinois, he reading PhD, and a candidate na Northwestern University na Illinois. So my family una thank you for una we watch today. Una listen to Mr. Chernoh Alpha M Bah with the advisory guna and the security situation where they go na Sierra Leone. We go bring and come back to una back at any time. At least like can educate una and tell una about the violation, the way they go na the country, not the right. And we program today with Cast TV. We producer will get today. Now Amjad Jalomi Bah and me na Abdullah Mansare. We will come back to una anytime soon and bring una come updates about Sierra Leone. Una tata, una bye bye.